Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And literally everybody has linked me this video on all of my social media. They're like, Jason, even Athlean-X is speaking out against the above the knee rack pull now. Again, I guess I'm a prophet on this one. So let me go ahead and put on my +5 hat of speechcraft and let's talk about this. And the thing is, guys, this is one of these where experts need to take a hard stance on. When it was just Strap-On Destiny, who is literally just an ignorant little child with no knowledge of training, he really is, and I'm sorry to anyone who follows him, that's reality. When it was just him promoting it, it wasn't that big of a deal. The problem becomes when you now see Jeff Nippard, when you see a big channel like Scott Herman Fitness promoting it, when all the experts out here are saying, guys, this is a bad idea. The problem is most of these experts have less outreach than these guys do. I mean, and I have more outreach than some of them do, unfortunately, and people aren't listening to me on it. And I've been saying for over a year, this is literally, and I mean literally, the worst, most useless, stupid exercise anyone has done on YouTube in a very long time. It literally needs to be killed off. And now you have someone who's one of the big channels like Jeff, who physical therapy background is stepping in saying, guys, this is a bad idea. And what I've been trying to say all this time is that it doesn't even give the hypertrophy that you want. And we could argue about that all day long, but I mean, here's the point I would make with that. Based upon when we talk about fatigue versus stimulus ratios, even if it was physically capable of giving you the same trap stimulation that a shrug is, and it's not, it physically and biomechanically cannot equal a shrug. But even if it could equal the shrug, it's still an inferior exercise from a fatigue management, injury risk management, and a damage to equipment management issue. It has three big problems that make it inferior to the shrug, even if it could equal it, but it is still an inferior hypertrophy exercise. And when I mean inferior, if I mean it could give the same amount per set, you would still gain less muscle. Why? Because you can't do as much training volume and recover from it. So if you're getting the same amount of stimulus but harder to recover from, you can do less training, therefore you grow slower. It's just a stupid exercise. And Jeff raised the point of talking about the sort of injuries that come with it, and I'm glad that he discussed the injury end of it and the risk of nerve damage, because, I mean, realistically speaking, it is a real problem. And it does have to do with the way that people perform the exercise, because, again, there is no scapula pulled back. They're just kind of squatting down and they're squatting up with it. They're removing the hip hinge, and when you're doing it above the knee, you are using weights oftentimes double what you can deadlift. And I mean, case in point, one of the people who popularized it, Alpha Destiny, is like a low 500s deadlifter and hit 1,000 pounds on it. That should tell you something. How many guys do you see who don't even look like they lift, who are tiny, who are probably 300-pound deadlifters, do you see now doing 600 pounds on this in the gym? Right, that's a problem, and it's a problem in terms of the stress put on the body when you haven't built up the rest of the musculature in your body to handle those weights. When you do these extreme partials like that, what it actually does is, as he pointed out, you're putting huge amounts of stress on your entire shoulder structure pulling downward that you think is giving you a training effect. You think, oh yeah, my traps are just getting this big stretch. And guys, stretch overload has never even been found to be the best form of hypertrophy training, okay? This has been studied. It's been studied. Stretch overload only produces a minor hypertrophic effect under normal conditions. I'm not saying it doesn't cause some growth. It doesn't cause as much as a full range of motion does. It's a lot less. So even these guys are like, well, how come these guys who do farmer's walks have big traps? Because the guys who have big traps doing farmer's walk use 55-gallon fucking drums of anabolic steroids. All right, let me state that again. The strong men who have big traps from doing farmer's walks, use 55 fucking gallons of steroids. That's why they have big traps. And they all deadlift 900 pounds. And they all overhead press 300 and 400 pounds. And they do rows with 600 pounds. That's why they have massive traps. It has nothing to do with the farmer's walks. I mean, and if you really believe it's the farmer's walks in light of all of that, you're basically a fucking moron. Jesus Christ, guys. And I hate to have to rant like that, but I get so tired of that argument by ignorant ass little silly kids who don't know anything about training. It just blows my fucking mind how goddamn stupid and ignorant you guys can be with that. It is so fucking stupid. Like, I don't even have words to describe how fucking stupid you are if you think these guys have big traps from doing farmer's walks. Okay, rant over. You guys are very rarely going to hear me do that, but that's literally so stupid that I just have to say it. So then they equate that to the rack pulls. Must be, oh, it's the rack pulls. No, guys, when you're using 5 grams a test and you deadlift 900 pounds, you're going to have big traps. It's not that hard to figure out. So back over to the point. Jeff pointed out that there's risk of injury. And he even said, look, we're talking about 2 different forms of rack pulls. And people need to understand the below the knee rack pull is controversial itself. All right, that is a point of controversy actually argued in powerlifting. Now, is Jeff right when he says that the below the knee rack pull could be useful in certain situations where people have reduced mobility? Yes. And I have seen coaches and I have seen good personal trainers actually train people who are older lifters. Maybe they're starting someone who's 50 or 60 years old in the gym to do a deadlift and they struggle with the mobility. I've seen them do the below the knee rack pull to gradually increase their range of motion, or deadlift off of blocks and then slowly reduce it down, or start with mats and then reduce it an inch on them every week or every couple of weeks until they can pull from the floor. And it might take a couple months to get them there. You know what? That's perfectly acceptable. And he brought that up. Right? That has merit. But that's for unhealthy populations. These are not for healthy young men who are lifting. Right? These are for geriatric populations, people with injuries. Physical therapists might work with people like that. And you know what? It has absolute merit in that. He's right. And I've seen it done successfully. I've known coaches who have had their clients do that. As far as it being a deadlift accessory, that's actually really controversial. There are coaches who feel it's a staple in their training for the deadlift, the below the knee. And there are some who feel it doesn't carry over that well. That's a big point of argument. But you know what? All of them use less than their 1 rep max on the deadlift from the floor when they do it. All of those who successfully implement it, none of them have a 500-pound deadlifter do 550 below the knee. All right, he does 400. Does 450. They don't even do 500 plus if they can pull 500 from the floor, because it doesn't work that well. It's not how that lift is utilized. But he pointed out that is one of the uses of it. But again, using it below the knee as a deadlift accessory is actually a point of controversy. It is not universally agreed upon by even world-class level coaches. There are some who think it's fantastic for that. There are some who question its carryover. I mean, I'm a big fan of Louis Simmons. Louis Simmons believes in the below the knee rack pull with sub-maximal weights, like maybe 70% of your max. He's a big believer in it. Pete Rubish the other day said he questions if that's useful at all. All right? So we're dealing with some points of contention here. But he brought that up, but he came back over to the point of, but when it's talking about above the knee, it is a bad idea from a risk management perspective, injury perspective, the biomechanics, everything else involved. It is an exercise that over time, it is going to potentially injure you. And as he pointed out, that it's a gradual injury. It's not an injury that you notice at first, that it could take months to accumulate. And the problem is that once you have the injury, you don't know why you have the injury, because of the way that it causes nerve damage potentially of where it's at up through here. And again, Jeff does have a physical therapy background. This is his wheelhouse. I might not always respect him as a strength coach, and I don't, but he's talking about physical therapy here and injuries and nerve damage, and he's saying, look, if you get the nerve damage from doing this lift this way, you may not notice it for months, and you may not be able to identify the source of it, because you're going to feel it in your hands or your arms or your legs, and you're not going to feel it up here where it actually happened, and you're not even going to be able to identify that it was a rack pull that caused this. And this is stuff that we need to be pointing out, because again, Dr. Mike Israetel chimed in on this a while back, and I brought that up. Then you got Athlean-X is chiming in on this, and you still have guys now like Jeff Nippard, who claims to be evidence-based. Well, you're not when you're promoting above-the-knee rack pulls. You can kick that shit to the curb, Jeff. I'm never buying your bullshit ever again. And everyone needs to call you on that. Same thing, Scott Herman Fitness talks a good game, but then he starts talking about this above-the-knee rack pull and defended it, and said that anyone who doesn't understand why he's doing it needs to educate themselves. And it's like, really? Because who are you going to educate yourself from? The leading experts? The leading experts all think it's dangerous, stupid, and it's a trash exercise. Like, educate yourself by listening to Alpha Destiny, who is promoting it as a 21-year-old kid with no lifting experience. That's your source? Because that's where you're getting your education on it, Scott. And granted, Alex will probably gain more knowledge over time with years and years of lifting, but he is barely reaching a point in his own training experience where he's even qualified to tell other people anything about lifting. He's barely reaching that threshold. And if that's your source of information, then that's a problem. When you have all these experts and now you've got a major voice in at least YouTube physical therapy who's now saying this is a stupid, dangerous exercise. I've been saying that for over a year. This is a stupid, dangerous exercise. And everyone who's supporting it, this needs to be shown to them. They need to be called out on it. They need to just back away from it and admit they were wrong. Right? We all need to be mature enough to do that. I've done it when I've been wrong on things in the past. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.